All right, hi everyone. This is a bit of a follow-on to the staying interested in your own projects video. There were some really good comments on that one, kind of like, sharing your opinions about that matter, how you try and stay interested, or people just kind of sharing the sentiment that they're also struggling, especially some people with like attention deficit issues as well, which I may or may not have. I've never been diagnosed, but I just think it's really interesting. But it got me thinking specifically about the problem of making a task or a project a routine and therefore not being interested in following through with it anymore, and ways to avoid that. And we kind of mentioned about how injecting chaos to stop that sensation of the routine being there or the necessity of having to carry on with a project. Someone had a really interesting idea. Actually, let me try and find who they are. Yeah, it was user Dimly Mirrored. Said, I feel like I've been on both sides of that. I was also thinking while you were talking that it could be interesting to have some sort of system that would take in all the tasks and details you want, but would generally hide them and just intermittently, perhaps randomly, pose them on you while you work. I thought that was quite interesting, randomly giving you tasks. So like you don't have an expectation of what you're supposed to do, but it just presents you with random ones from what you generally wanted to do. I think that might actually be effective to a certain degree, but I don't know like the best way of maybe testing that out, maybe writing a little program to do it. Because it may sound quite silly, like almost like a gamification element, but I still think that would be kind of handy to try because it does remove the expectation. You don't know what you're supposed to be doing. You're going to be given like a deck of cards almost every day. And in that way, it may feel more fun and enjoyable kind of exploring those different options. But that got me thinking as well, because like when releasing products and making new projects, I sometimes described it to people as like expanding my territory. So like every project you make kind of expands the places you've explored and places you can come back to. So for example, like if I did my procedural patterns pack for procedural node groups in Blender, I know that I have explored the procedural kind of material territory. And there are other things around that as well, like modular metals, ambient grunge, whatever. But like if I ever want to come back to that procedural territory, there's stuff there where I can kind of put updates on and then make more money or make new projects from them and new videos, etc. So there's lots of options. But like the more territory that you have, the more options you have. And also these things kind of generate resources as well. So if you think about it like a civilization game, each of these projects are like city states and they're kind of generating different resources. And they may also kind of drain your resources in different ways, but I think it's quite interesting thinking about them in that kind of gamified way. Because again, it's quite easy to see each of these projects as expectations or requirements, things which need to be added to in the future. But I've kind of been wondering whether seeing them from like a top-down map perspective mentally is a better way of doing it, because rather than seeing them all as expectations, you see your entire business as like a nation or a country or a project in general that needs to be sustained and grow and kept alive. So that raises the question, like, is there a good way to actually do that visualization in workflow software? And obviously the one that comes to mind is like a brainstorming software of some kind where you're creating a mind map and you can see like all your different projects and you can visualize that like a territory. But I don't know, they're kind of difficult to navigate and they get quite messy, especially when you're managing tasks. I mean, it might be possible, but I like the kind of wiki system of Notion again for storing information, but then, you always come back to the problem of hiding tasks behind other tasks and therefore never looking at them. But I'd still like a way of almost gamifying it in a way where I can actually see like a top-down perspective of my city states being the projects, so that every day when I wake up I can look at the country of the business, the nation, and go, okay, well, over in this highland territory we need to kind of bulk up these resources here and amp up the defenses over here. Do you know what I'm saying? Like, you'll approach it differently every day, especially if you're coming from like a kind of creative mindset where your interests are changing every day, but you're still working towards this whole project. And rather than seeing them as expectations for things which need to be done, you're seeing them as a playground of all the things you can play with. And it doesn't matter what you do, like, you're still going to be productive in helping each of these things. So like I said, I'm using Notion at the moment for my task management. It'll be interesting to see if they like try integrating mind map type techniques, because I'll give that a go, because I'm not particularly keen on like using different softwares to do all of this. Maybe I'll draw it out, or maybe this could actually be a Blender project. Maybe I could do a video where I design the terrain and the map of my projects. Interesting. Anyway, I shouldn't make this video too long if I don't need to. That's just kind of like the main point I wanted to get across. That there's a couple of interesting things to try there. Randomization, so you're blocking out the expectation, so you don't lose interest in a project by feeling like you've set a requirement to have to do it as part of a routine. And then also this gamification top-down view, where instead of seeing things as tasks, you see them as like the resource points in your grand country or something. Or maybe even from like the logistics and automation standpoint, like the Factorio game, rather than seeing them as like city states, you can see them as like processing units and assemblers and stuff like that. So yeah, just something to think about. If you made it this far, put like a tool emoji in the comments, like a wrench or a hammer or something, so I can see who you are. And yeah, have a fantastic day everyone, and I will see you next time.